Welcome to my space. I'm Rita Levin, and many know me. Some people don't know me. I'm a real estate professional for almost 25 years. And today we are going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about some other things involving our communities, plans for the community. But at the same time, I still would like to talk more about, let's say, houses. And later I'm going to introduce a very exciting and interesting person who's sitting right next to me, Katia. But for now, let me tell you a little bit about my experiences with houses. Many houses, not many, I would say all of them, they have a soul. They are a living organisms. And when you enter houses, it's some of you who can feel this energy. And I feel that I'm one of those lucky ones. I can tell you right away whether I'd like to be in this place or I'd like to get out, how I feel about, whether I feel cold or comfortable, anxious. Same time, I'm always trying to tell my clients about my feelings about each particular place I'm visiting or showing to them. There's been a period of time when I studied myself some Chinese theories. And one of them, it's called Feng Shui, which tells you about how the energy should flow in the house and what's happening there and how the space should be organized in order for people to live happy and to experience health and prosperity. That's the reason I feel one of this first interview we're going to have, it's this, again, very interesting lady. And I'm very happy to be her friend. It's Katia Dickenson. And she's not only a professional in her life, but beside that, she has a huge hobby and knowledge of Chinese metaphysics. So let me give a word to Katia, and Katia will tell a couple things about her.
Thank you so much for inviting me here, Rita. And I will be happy to talk about Chinese metaphysics and feng shui specifically. Just let me know what you're interested in listening today.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like you to talk a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in this country, what you do besides studying the Chinese metaphysics. So just introduce yourself.
Sure. So let's just say by day, I'm a designer. I work in a technical company. It's a user experience designer. I've been in this field for years and years, more than 15. I mentor designers, sometimes teach to the subject. So this is by day. By night, I have a big hobby, one of my latest hobby, and that, as you mentioned, Chinese metaphysics. And I picked this hobby during the pandemics. In the very beginning, I think the thing being locked in, and all of a sudden there was a lot of knowledge available to you through online. The knowledge that was not available before because you had to go to study with masters there. So it was kind of segueing into this new world of Chinese metaphysics. But before I even talk about it, let me tell you what Chinese metaphysics is.
Very interesting how I came across this particular topic and you've been invited to have this their first video with extremely interesting people. I came across your Instagram account. And on that Instagram account, I remember it was for the month of February. You wrote specifically about how Feng Shui or Chinese metaphysics can assist people in buying houses, in kind of feeling whether it's the right house for them. And I was so excited about it. And I thought to myself, that's exactly who I would like to invite for my first video. And it would be amazing for us to talk to each other and bring this value to the community. What I didn't mention that being not only a real estate agent, but also a fun person, outgoing person who has a huge variety of different interests in this world. But also I feel with the years to come and coming years, that I'd like to bring community together. I'd like to educate communities. And not only definitely, it's very interesting to bring into conversation a CPA or mortgage broker, but at the same time, it's more exciting, more interesting to talk about some topics which are not a mainstream topics. So that's the reason I'm so happy to have you here. So let's start. My number one question is, what is a Chinese metaphysics? How it's different from Western astrology and other spiritual systems?
Good question. That actually asked many times, what is the difference, right? So Chinese metaphysics, it's ancient, very ancient body of knowledge, and it consists of different disciplines. I give you an example, but they call it's a 4 pillars of destiny that operates in terms of like human luck, human potential. based on their birth chart. That's what they think about it. It's like a DNA. There is feng shui that operates of Qi. Qi is a flow of energy of your surroundings and how it affect your life. There is it called two main reserve or emperor's tool to strategic tool, which helps you to make decisions and select the right set of actions, more like to bring the luck or success or whatever you want to achieve. And there is I Ching, which called Book of Change, and that operates of the Asian concept of cyclical change in our life, because every step in the universe is always changing, and there is no end. There is every end is a beginning of something, and we go in cycles. So those big disciplines, that's all Chinese metaphysics. So how it's different from Western astrology, it's kind of self-explanatory, what I already mentioned. Western astrology operates planetary bodies and how it affected. Also the birth chart and how the planets were arranged. There's a lot of similarities in the way you read the chart on the Western, like a birth chart, and Vazi chart, for example. I would sometimes do both, and you will be amazed, because at the end, they all work together perfectly, right? But when you think about Chinese metaphysics, it's a concept of, for example, yin, yang, which is every duality in everything, right? You say black and white, good or bad, never good, never bad, never white, never bad, right? So, like I mentioned, feng shui operates the concept of Qi, which is flow of energy of landscape and how it affects your living. Because like ancient Chinese, it goes back 3,000, maybe even more. I think the first mentioning, they say 6,000. Can you believe how ancient the study? All the study. It is not the popular feng shui, the Maneki cat with the rays. No, there's nothing to do with this. So ancient Chinese, they noticed that people living in certain locations have better health, or better wealth, or better relationships. And they studied that and they discovered patterns. So the way sea flows, so the landscape, the way your house position, house or apartment or whatever living space position in the landscape, it affects you as a human living in that space. And knowing that you can make changes, right?
And not only that, I understand, so within the space itself, you also can rearrange stuff to make the energy flow differently.
So actually, the very first, if you ask me, if you would give any recommendation to anybody, like how to improve their living, without knowing theory of feng shui, what do you think I'll say?
Okay, let's go to my house and do it right now.
Exactly, right? Not that
No. Yeah.
But really, a concept of clutter preventing
100%.
Preventing energy flowing. So one of the recommendations, just literally clean the house, pick out the clutter, open the windows to let the air in, right? Because feng shui, it's water and wind. Mm-hmm. It's a study of water and wind.
Yeah.
Right? So,
absolutely. And it's so interesting to how it's all coming together and how you can do little tweaks in your space to make it more like energy efficient, and you will feel much better in the space you can create with some little tweaks. That's for sure. So, and let's talk more about how feng shui influences your well-being and success. I think it's very important as well, because we just touched this little topic that even the little things like decluttering or maybe putting a tree in a certain space in your home, or how you need to arrange your office and some other stuff will improve the success and well-being dramatically.
So let me tell you that in feng shui, there's two main, let's just say schools, maybe not schools, directions. One, study surroundings. It's basically how the whole landscape affects you and many people in the longer term. And this is larger. It's basically how you pick the right house, where it's located, how it's positioned. That is super important. And I would say this is the base. Everything else, what you do inside the house, if you choose the right house in the first place, it's just addition. But if house is not auspiciously located, or there's some certain things that you did not notice when you purchased, then whatever you do in the house may improve a little bit, but would not allow you to really, like, I would say, jump on the next level.
I feel I need to have you every time we're going to visit the house with my clients.
It's actually a good point.
You are tired.
So, they say there's never an ideal house. Never. You would never find, rarely, I would say, there are, but they probably It's interesting. I watch houses being put for sale on like Redfin or whatever is there. And you would always see that houses, the first thing I look where they are located. I don't look at how they select. And when I look, there is always correlations. The better position feng shui in the location, usually the more expensive house is.
Exactly.
But let's just set this aside. I don't say there are no good feng shui in houses in a lesser price or different locations. It's not there. What you need to consider is what is your goal. So when you want, for example, let's just say career success, right? You would look for certain parameters in your landscape in the northwest sector. Okay. Just like an example, it's not like only this, there's other things. If you focus on wealth, but your goal in the next 5 to 10 years to really improve that area of your life, you probably want to have house with the correct feng shui on the east and southeast, because those sectors specifically are responsible for the money, the amount, and the speed you earn it. There's requirements to the landscape for those sectors. If you talk about money, you can also address like popularity, relationship, or whatever it is. So if you have a business that needs to go on international market, then you need to consider certain things too. So you can hit it in many different ways. That's how the big landscape, in my opinion, a little bit more important than what is inside the house.
This is so incredible. And by the way, when we mentioned all this east, west, north, and stuff like that, here is a very interesting thing. It's not just because here is a compass, and it's a very special compass.
Lopan. And it has different rings that each ring is a leaning for specific things. I don't go into details because it's too technical terms. But with this, the professional would read a lot about the landscape, about your house, about many, many things. And I want just to mention that there is also, I will show you, there is also compass on your phone. It does about the same. However, I would not use it when you need super precise reading, but it still will tell you a lot. Like you can see what's the southeast that marks green, for example, where it's located, and you can evaluate it.
Again, it was so interesting because when it was for February when you said where the candle needs to be positioned for the abundance, for the wealth, and everything. It was specifically said about specific coordinates. My husband and I, we looked at your compass. Yeah, that was awesome. Found that particular, place, and the candle was burning in the days you mentioned they need to burn. So hopefully it brought me some abundance additional to the tree.
And sure it does.
It does. I 100% believe in that.
Sometimes it manifests itself in a way, like little things that you may not otherwise notice. Give you an example. One of my friends, they just received like double order of something that they like, just like little things, right? There's always not saying how like people who work for themselves, like business people, they would see it increase because it's a business. Like you work, you get income. People who work on salary sometimes have no means of like extra income, but that's in this case it will manifest itself in this little strange add-ons.
That is awesome.
Yes, and the compass, by the way, that's where I merge the technical work. I live, work, right, and I love my job and the hobby I have, which it's so much fun to do too.
And for everyone who's going to watch this video, so definitely leave us comments if you have questions how to get that compass. And
it's just an up story.
Yeah, I understand. No, it's not. Yes, exactly. So everything is just within your reach, and you can write comments under this video, or you can write me directly. So it's basically fingertips, and we can send all this additional information. So let's continue. What else can you talk about feng shui and the space, and some maybe other interesting practical advice what to look at when you choosing the house, so when you're walking inside the house. So you already mentioned the landscape and stuff like that.
Right. So I mentioned about two schools, and I start talking about one that operates the large area. By the way, it's called Sanhe Feng Shui. But there is a second one that operates, it's called a compass school. And that's how you work within the house, your own house. If there is a concept of flying stars, in certain area of your living space have certain energy. It's like a birth chart of your house. When you move into the house, you get like I said, you come to the space, you feel it, right? Some have very
good vibes, and some very bad vibes.
And this is another thing. There's more auspicious and there's less auspicious configurations. It all depends. There's never black and white. It depends on what you want, right, on your goal. But if you ask me what I would also mention, something that you don't really need to study feng shui. For example, there are concept of health, right? For example,
100%, the most important thing.
so there is front of the house and there is a back of the house, and the back called sitting. In technically, for better health, is better than the sitting area of the house. Like one ski behind is a little bit higher than your front. And when I was walking to your house, I was just like, oh, it has a really nice, you can expect people who live here have a longevity because you have this difference. And it's not too much. It's just
a balance.
It's kind of balance, yeah. But that's there. Yeah, so that's another thing interesting. You can kind of look. I don't say it's wrong to have the other way around. There is pluses and other configuration, but usually, traditionally, this would be more auspicious when you look for houses.
Very interesting. See, we're always talking about that when you buy a house, you need to have a good, and something needs to be done there. You need to have a good interior designer. But to me right now, to have someone like you to come and to give practical advices, it's as important as anything else, because basically you will give absolutely invaluable advice to homeowners how they can make their lives much better, healthier. And let's talk about the relationship, because I know that how you organize the space will, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So let's just say I come in
Mm-hmm.
and I say, guys, all good, but I have some concerns.
Okay.
Would you appreciate this?
Oh, yeah. It all depends on how you're going to present it. Because if you're going to be blunt, definitely many people, they might reject it. But the more we're going to educate our audience, and that's the reason we are filming it right now, it's to give this, it's like the first brain of thought that it's more to it, that you need to look at your home, at your life from different angles. And if something will benefit you, that's the most important,
That's true. Yeah. So I think if like a new house owner or people who look for the house know that the certain area of the house is super auspicious. And by the way, this is another thing I can talk about, like every single house, every single one have areas where you could actually go to recuperate, to refill the energy. It's called literally as what is it? Shanxi sectors, right? It goes back to concept of 8 mansions, and I don't want to go into details.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, would you be interested to know where they are in the house, right?
100%.
So that's something probably people
Absolutely. And I feel that nowadays people are becoming more open-minded, and so many people, they are practicing yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, and that's why they are more open to this idea of organizing their space accordingly. So because our goal at the end of the day to make people happy. And in my career, the most important thing was to not only produce the result to buy house, to sell house, but to make my clients happy. And that's why I always tell my clients that I will not allow you buy just a house. It needs to be a house where you are going to feel happy and live there for a long time. That's why so many of my clients, they don't sell houses.
Which is good. What? If person does not want to sell house usually sells long.
Mhm.
I mean, if they put it on the market, it just like
Exactly. You need to separate yourself from the house, otherwise you will in it so tight. I know that very well. And so many times I had this experience with the houses when they just wouldn't sell. And I would tell my clients, you know what? Just already get rid of this house in your mind because you're holding it.
This is 100%. And so, by the way, to sell the house, right? There's few things. When you want to go faster, you put it on the market on a certain day. It's like separation or whatever, and that will help. But if people, hold it in their heart, it won't sell. So another recommendation, they say, make somebody else like put this up ad for you. So it's literally like they are doing it for you. So there is a detachment.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting because you're in this business. You've seen it, right?
I've seen it many times. And that's why I'm telling you that I literally told my clients that I wouldn't be able to sell the house unless you separate yourself from it. But I didn't know about specific days when they need to go on the market.
It's a day selection, right? So it goes to concept of, I'm not sure if I mentioned that. So 5 energy, that's another, what the metaphysics operate. 5 energy is fire, earth, metal, water, and wood.
Yes.
Right? So all of us also have those energy, like as I mentioned, you have the DNA of your birth chart, right? And sometimes date would support you, date would support house or decisions, and vice versa. Plus, there's other things that you need to consider when you put your house for sale.
You are indispensable in my business, that's for sure, in our business.
I really love it. It's fascinating to the point that I'm astonished at how powerful it can be and how much results you see. I wrote about it. It's just a lot, right? It's not something I do for living, but I noticed people start coming for consultations, for questions, for date selection. And like you mentioned, when you work with your clients, your goal is to help. And the same for me. When I see, for example, a great potential that person may not even know about, right? That's my job to let them know that, look, you actually can do this way, way easier than other people because universe will support you.
Yeah. And that goes back that, so we all live in the community and we're here to support our community, to help our community and to educate our community. And that's why we know so much in different areas, not everything. No, it's not possible to know everything. And so many times when I talk to people and they ask me questions, and if I don't know, I'll tell them straight up that if I don't know something, I'll research it and I'll get back to you. So same thing here. Don't be afraid to reach out to us and to ask more questions. And we can do further seminars and one-on-one consultations. It's so exciting. It's so interesting. But going back to our topic. So we talked about like the feng shui, about the space, but specifically like the relationship. How can you improve the relationship knowing the Chinese metaphysics?
Not only feng shui, but like I mentioned, for example, that's the 4 pillars of destiny, right? So think about everybody have combination of different level of those set of energies, like I mentioned, 5, right?
Yeah.
It's not just fire, wood, it's a name, but it also called like 5 arts or 5 actions, right? Or 5 ways of thinking. So when you know your partner have certain configuration or more of something than another, like energy, you know how they probably to think and act, right? And this is one data point that you can use to know what resonates. So there is a book, 5 Languages of Love, right? For some people, it's important to have meaningful conversation, right? Some people need to listen, right?
Absolutely.
Some need to see, some need to touch. The same, with, not one-to-one, but the same idea that you would know what they need, right? So how to reach. So that's one aspect. Second aspect, there is, it's called auxiliary star. So it's just from the star. It's called peach blossom. And it's responsible for love, relationship. So you can bring it back to feng shui. You can find the sector in your house and make sure that it's in a good condition. And sometimes you could put, remember you mentioned where to put plants.
Exactly.
So that's where you have to put plant there, right? So it grows and blossoms. So it's just an example.
Yeah, very interesting.
Of course, just a meaningful conversation and working on a relationship. No feng shui will do anything for you if you do not actually act.
100%. That's the most important thing, is that people should talk to each other, like in any family. Husband and wife, they need to talk to each other. Just members of the family, they need to talk to each other and to listen. That's another thing that people sometimes they don't know how to listen to each other and to hear. To listen, to hear, it's different things.
It's different. Also, it's interesting. Sometimes 2 charts, they are very, they work together very well. It's like one in another supports, and it's very seamless. Usually when I see couples who live longer, I'm sure if I look you and your husband together, you would see very harmonious configurations. And vice versa, but no clashes means break up. It's sometimes challenge that help you to go to the higher level. If there is a reason for that. So going back to, there is no black and white. It's just what you need to work with.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We can continue conversation on this topic and other interesting things about the Chinese metaphysics. But I would say that we, again, would like to hear from you, whether you liked it, and what else would you like to hear from us. Now, on a different topic, as I mentioned that my whole idea right now, my team's idea, my partner's idea is to expand more into community and to create the space in the community, which was never done before. So we are planning different events. We are planning different meetings with very interesting people. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching this video.
I wish you great feng shui and prosperity and well-being. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. Thank you, Katia. Thank you.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.